Hey horror fans, thanks for joining me for this review of They/Them. Alright, cast and crew information down below, and let's see what this IMDb plot has to say to start. A group of teenagers at a LGBTQ plus conversion camp endures unsettling psychological techniques while being stalked by a mysterious killer. Ooh, that killer that's going to be stalking them. Alright, so this is a new one out on Peacock Plus, the streaming network here. Haven't caught too many things off of Peacock, so it's good to see a horror movie on there. And really wasn't sure was going to check this out or not. I guess the biggest draw is that Kevin Bacon is at the center of this movie, and that's probably the biggest reason why I've turned it on. It's good to see that he continues to do horror/thriller movies. They seem to fit him well, but he is starting to get up there. But he still does a pretty good job in these movies. So I'm not going to complain about it, and glad to see him continuing to do this. So since it's a new movie, I will kind of keep this as spoiler-free as possible. And I guess speaking of Kevin Bacon being in the movie, I'm not even gonna try to say her last name, but Anna, yeah, I don't want to feel like butchering it, but yeah, Chlumsky, I guess, or something like that. Sorry. In other words, for those of you who were traumatized by the movie My Girl long ago, she's in this movie, and she was in something else I saw not too long ago. It's kind of surprising. I don't remember what it was. But it was kind of nice to see her there. It kind of brings back that flashback. See, I don't think many people really get over seeing My Girl. Horror in a different way, because it's extremely depressing. But anyway, it's not a review from My Girl. Let's get back to the point here. So yeah, let's kind of. This is an interesting movie for a couple of reasons, and hopefully I don't say anything out of line. And if I do, I apologize. Don't mean to. But here we have a group of I guess we'll set things up here, and then we'll kind of talk about a couple of things. So you have a group of teens. Young people have arrived at this camp, kind of a summer camp kind of vibe, and they're there kind of standing out front. They kind of got bussed in there, and Kevin Bacon kind of approaches them with a few staff members, in the distance behind him, and he proceeds to give a pretty good speech. And it's a speech to them, but it's a speech to those watching. And there's a lot of different audience that could be watching this movie. People that can relate to these teens, that are in these teens positions, and then people like me who aren't, and not quite familiar with what they're going through. So it's a chance to learn, and a chance to kind of take things in from a different perspective. So he gives a good speech about acceptance and them being there, and yeah, it's difficult and maybe not their ideal situation, and he tries to kind of paint it as none of them really at the end of the day want to be there. I mean, to think about why they're really there is it's a conversion camp. It's in hopes. He paints it as a picture of just kind of them trying to kind of maybe find themselves, and maybe hopes that maybe they go back to what society says is the standard, boy likes girl, girl likes boy, and that kind of thing. And but he's okay with them, or he says it at the beginning, okay with them just kind of taking the chance to maybe explore and try to find themselves, whatever themselves is at the end of the day. And so he gives a good speech there, and kind of introduces the rest of the staff and their roles there. and then kind of points out, hey, the boys' cabin is over here, the girls' cabin is over there, kind of, split up, and we'll meet back later. Everybody kind of goes their way except for a teen named Jordan. And Jordan is going to subtly be the troublemaker, kind of, but kind of just the voice of reason, kind of in this movie. And Jordan is transgender, and it's kind of like, well, standing there like, do I go to the boys? Do I go to the girls? Hey, I'm transgender. What, is there a place for me to go? And then Kevin Bacon kind of approaches it in a delicate manner, and he goes, okay, well, maybe that's something we can consider in the future of having, boys, girls, and a transgender cabin. But for now, kind of, hey, why don't you just go with the boys? And if for whatever reason that's just not working for you, whatever, then we can discuss it and address that issue later. So he kind of takes it in an understanding kind of way, and, kind of tones down what is a really awkward moment. And everybody goes their way. And then, we kind of see the typical, kind of camp thing going on here. You kind of see them kind of doing the standard kind of camp stuff where, it's not really where you would see kind of at a typical camp. There's nothing to have to do with who they are. It's just, we're going to do camp kind of stuff. And then we find... Well, I'll kind of skip that. I'll say that but then as a little bit of the time rolls on here, you kind of see that maybe things aren't what they see, and obviously from the IMDb plot here, that it's not going to be as friendly as it's perceived there, and it's not going to be what Kevin Bacon says is opening, where it's about acceptance. As the longer they're there, the little bit more aggressive these things become, as far as, okay, a man does these kind of things, so we're going to do these kind of things, and a woman does these kind of things, so we're going to do these kind of things. So they kind of have them do those, kind of exercises. At the beginning they were kind of just doing kind of camp things. Now they're doing more specific things to try to be like, all right, you guys are really guys at the end of the day, and you guys are going to do this, and you girls are really girls at the end of the day, so you're going to do this. And kind of the again, standard things that society kind of thinks that you should be doing. So that is kind of where some of the tension is going to start to build up. Obviously, Jordan is going to start to get under the skin of Kevin Bacon and so forth. There's some other things going on. I'm not going to dive into. I'll let you guys kind of unfold that. I don't want to go through every single thing that happens here. But there's a little bit of a mystery going on here. As you're going to see things going on here, you're going to see there's like a psychologist there. She gets a little weird with a couple of people and what she says, and then, you think she's all nice, but she's not really that nice. And you start seeing some weird imagery in the main cabin. Again, Jordan is poking around and seeing things that probably shouldn't have been seen, and that kind of gives you again a clue that, hey, something else is going on here. And long and behold, in all of this, and you don't, it almost happens, so randomly, so suddenly, is that you got to remember that, as it said in the plot at the beginning, there's a mass killer here too. So while not a lot of killing is going on throughout all this, there's one at the opening. I think there's another one randomly in there. Most of the killing is kind of held too much, in the back half of the film. So as you get a lot of this mystery and setup and obviously touching on the issues of the film, you kind of get lost to the fact that, hey, there is a killer here, and they don't really make their presence really felt to the final act. It's not a movie where, not the more standard of a slasher, where you kind of see, a death sprinkle in here or there, and then bam, it hits. This one is even a little bit less than that, or it just felt that way. Again, because they're obviously making more concentrated on the point of the movie and then touching on the issues at hand than I think the horror that's going on here, and I'll get to that in a second. Um, but yeah, so you have, you know, the issues of now Jordan and kind of filling in a couple of the others that, hey, you know, what's going on here is probably not the best for us and maybe we should be leaving. And then you start to kind of see more of the other side of it, that, hey, you know, the people running this camp, you start seeing the bad things that they have in mind and what they're going to do. And then, you know, as they're kind of hitting buds, you know, bumping heads, whatever, um, bam, okay, now towards the end of the movie, you have a serial killer mixed in, and you know, what is their role in this movie and what is going on, and so forth. Again, I don't want to spoil this. So I don't want to touch too much on it. It probably even maybe went too far there. Um, but a couple of things that to kind of to round this movie out here. I think, you know, yes, it is a horror movie, and a horror movie in two respects. Obviously, you have the killer there, and you have a lot of the kind of standard horror kind of stuff you see. We have a camp, which we've seen before. We have people in the woods. We see plenty of times. We see young teens put, you know, in danger. So we see a lot of that. We have a slasher. We have a person in a mask, and they're going to kill some people, and, you know, we're going to see some people die. So you kind of get that typical horror in there. And I think from that respect, you know, we don't really see, you know, anything grand. We don't see anything, you know, really new, in that kind of respect. Then there's obviously the horror of the situation, the horror of what this camp is really trying to do to these kids. You know, at front they were trying to be good-faced, but at the end of the day, they're not. They are trying to do something that is really horrible, and, you know, let's face it, it's situation, you know, whether it's as extreme as where this movie eventually goes, you know, who only knows. I've heard stuff, but, you know, whether that's true or not, who knows? I don't know. And in this world that we live in, you know, who's really shocked at the end of the day, with so much of the craziness that goes on? But, you know, I've heard, you know, I don't know, whatever, that camps like this exist and places like this exist where, you know, they're taking young people who might be in the situation that these young people are, and kind of trying to influence them in a direction that's, you know, not probably the best for them and not who they really are. And whether it has to do with their sexuality or religious beliefs or certain other beliefs or whatever, you know, supposedly it happens out there in the world. So yeah, that is the horror of the situation that's created here. So you have the horrors that we're used to in movies, and then you have the horror of this situation. Um, I thought one of the things that I liked is that while it was, you know, a lot of standard horror and horror that we've seen around and so forth, I think the whole setup here and seeing a different group of people be put in this situation, I thought was kind of a little bit more refreshing from my standpoint. You know, thinking about a lot of horror movies we see, you know, a group of young people, again, go to a cabin in the woods for numerous reasons, because they're having a good time, because they're searching for something, because their car gets broken down, blah blah, and then long and behold, something is there, usually a slasher, that's going to kill them for A, B, or C reason. So we see a lot of that, and, you know, usually in the group there's a couple of couples, you know, they're going to have sex or insinuate that they are, and you know, the killer comes and generally doesn't like that and kills them, and stuff like that. So we see a lot of that. And you get used to those kind of characters. Where here we have a different group of characters, and I think maybe part of it is that, you know, again, like I said at the top, you know, I can't totally relate to a lot of the stuff that these characters are going through. So it's very interesting to see some of them, and you know, they dive into certain things and certain things that may be a little bit further than others, but it was kind of just refreshing to see different characters that I'm not used to seeing. characters who are talking about issues that I'm not used to always seeing talk. I know these days we've seen a lot more movies with people of these communities, gay, lesbian, transgender, whatever. We see a lot more of these movies coming out with people in them and made by them, which is fantastic. And but when you see them and the more it comes out, and certain movies they jump into certain issues, and others they don't jump into the issues as much. But when you're not as familiar with certain things going on, it kind of piques your interest a little more, as opposed to seeing the standard girl with big boobs going around, or guy with big muscles, and that they're gonna maybe most likely get together at some point in the movie, and you get these characters that you've seen over and over. Now you get different characters talking about different things, and it kind of keeps your attention a little bit more. So I think from that aspect, if that makes any sense, I thought that was interesting. I think if you're watching this and you can relate to some of these characters, it might have been interesting in what they're going through. Like I said, certain characters get to go a little bit further with what they're going through. Some others don't really. I mean, some are just there to be there and fill in space, and then some you get to know a little bit better, and some issues are talked about, and so forth. So I think setting up a different group of characters here was, to me, interesting, and kind of a different setting. I mean, even though, again, we have the camp, which is similar, and we have a killer that's out there that's all similar, but just the whole reason for them being there is different. It's not something that we usually see. So I liked the movie from that kind of standpoint of giving me kind of a similar situation but making it different enough. And props to the movie for not being afraid to go in certain directions, and talking about certain things, and even make it such a horrible situation at the end of the day. And then even props for them to when we see movies that we grew up on with slashers, like I said, you usually get a lot of sex scenes there, and obviously a lot of the older movies is man and woman having sex. Rarely would you see anybody else having sex in these movies. And in this movie, you have two women start to have sex, and you have two guys have sex in this movie. Both brief scenes. They don't go, it's not a long drawn out thing. But props to the movie for going there and doing that, because it's not, again, something that we've typically seen over the course of movies going on. So props to them for even doing that, even though they're short, and they don't make it the point, but it's good that, hey, we see in a lot of standard horror movies people having sex, so why not here? Why not, just because the kids in this movie might be different than what we're used to seeing, why not? So props to them for doing that. So I think you have a lot of things going on, and I guess the acting is good enough, and so forth. I didn't think the kills were too over the top. They're okay. I don't think there's anything in there to write home about. I never got extremely bloody or anything like that. I'm a blood and guts person, so the more bloodier it would have gotten, the better. It was okay. And maybe at the end of the day, where you think that more people would have died, maybe not as many died as maybe you would have hoped or thought. But it is what it is in that respect. So a lot of different things going on here. I think it's worth seeing. I think for numerous reasons. If you're interested, in what some of these kids are going through, or interested in seeing a different perspective, maybe get some real world horror there, that maybe things similar to this are going on. If you're not aware, and maybe you want to do some research, I'm quite positive some bad things are going on to people like this, and it's sad. I don't, we always trying to make people the way we want to make them, and just, just can't just let people be the way they want to be. But whatever. I'm not gonna make this into a political thing or whatever. And then at the end of the day, it is a horror movie. Like I said, is it gonna be a horror movie that you're not gonna recognize? Probably not. Maybe characters you don't recognize, but at the end of the day, the horror movie part of it behind it, you're gonna be very familiar with. So, the killer, I think they did I think if you kind of take a step back, it's not a total shock who that person is. I thought they did at least a decent job of hiding that. Obviously, the reasoning behind it, they do dive into that, and I think it's pretty obvious, and I think you would have expected that. And as a horror fan, you probably would have seen that coming and expected that. So I didn't. While they tried to make it like a twist, I don't think at the end of the day, normal horror fans would have, been like, "Oh, you got me." But I think it's okay. I think at the end of the day, it's okay. I don't, it's okay with what they did. I don't think that, the point here is not to be, not for the movie to end with the big twist, for you to go, "Oh my God, the biggest thing I took out of this movie is the twist." No, there's other stuff that are more important for you to take out of this movie. But it was, it's fine. It's fine at the end of the day. I think if this was a more normal slasher and whatever, I think, maybe you could have complained a little bit more. And then I'm sure maybe some people will complain. But to me, again, the twist is the supposed twist or whatever is really not the point here. So, I'm not going to make a big issue of it. So with that, I'm going to give it 3 pools of blood. Like I said, for some of the things that I thought were different in this movie. Maybe I would have given it high pools of blood if maybe the killing was amped up a little bit more. But again, well acted. I thought it was shot fine, and again, a lot of props for them to put out this movie and touch on some of the issues that they did, and do it with horror. I love there's tons of ways you can bring to light these issues, and using a horror movie to do it. We love horror, and we love seeing it in different ways and refreshing ideas. So, if it's a way to bring horror in a different way, I'm all for it. And hopefully we can see more movies dive into some of these issues and explore, mixing those issues with what we see as horror. Obviously, some of the things they go through are horror in the real world, but I'm talking about the horror that we enjoy here in the movies and so forth, to kind of bring those two things together, to learn. I think, to learn some things, and also to enjoy the horror. To enjoy it. I mean, that's what we're here for. So yeah, 3 pools of blood. That is out of 5. And stop rambling on about this now. And horrorscorereviews.blogspot.com. The link is down below, and that is where you can find all of my reviews, the video reviews and written reviews. Written reviews are there as well. But if you just want to watch this video and watch me ramble on, or just fast forward to when I give the rating, feel free to subscribe, like, whatever everybody wants you to do. And yeah, Twitter, Facebook information down below if you want to talk about the movie, you want to talk about horror, send me some of the review, whatever. You can reach out to me there. Also in the comment section below, if you've seen the movie, you have some comments about the film, or you want to also reach out to me there as well, feel free to. And yeah, with that, I guess I will catch you on the next review, horror fans.